Didn't take me long to get into a fish. I'm at Decoy Lakes today. I'm just on a simple method fishing a banded pellet in the deep margins. Just somewhere where it's nice and easy to loose feed. I've started on a fairly light rig, 0.3 of a gram. I've spaced out shots, not a massive hook, but soon I'm into a fish. Don't know what this one is. The good thing about this sort of fishing is you can feed when you've got a fish on. So I can feed there. I'm just feeding in two areas, and I've plumbed up and got just right on the edge where the deepest part is, and then it levels off. So down the slope, and I've just got that fishing in that crease. And I mean, it's just a lovely, simple, clean way to fish. I've got a puller bung just to take up any spare elastic. Gives you a bit more control on the fish. 2.7 millimetre microbore elastic. I love these new microbore elastics. They will stretch, but they've still got a fair bit of power, but they're fairly slim. If you had this elastic in normal hollow, it wouldn't be as powerful as this. I thought this was a small fish, but it's a bit bigger than I thought. This is Elm Lake, so there's a good head of barbel and carp, fairly good quality carp as well, big fish, which you need with banded pellet. Can't get this one up yet. I am really, right, I'm just using my exosphere pole. I'm giving this fish a lot of stick. I can't get his head up. What you always have to watch with this style of fishing is just be careful. I mean, the pole is normal, but what you have to watch is that what you have to think about is that these fish are brought up on pellets. All their life they're fed with pellets. Oh, it's a barbel. Beautiful barbel. Do you know what? Barbel fight harder, probably fight 3 times harder than carp for their size. Look at that, look. And that really took some getting out, that one, and it's probably about £3. But that's like fighting us, and it's perfectly hooked in the top lip. And that would be fighting as hard, say, as a £6 carp. Well, that's a great start. It's caught right in the bony part of the mouth. Brilliant start. It's important when you're fishing on these commercial fisheries to think about where you're going to fish. Now today, it's still a bit cool, so I decided I wanted to fish in the deep margin, so the deep water as close in as possible. And of course, every bank will start with a slope, so if I use a reasonable size plummet, a heavy plummet never lies, and you can just drop your heavy plummet in. Make sure that the plummet is dead below the tip of the pole. Don't just fling it out and think, oh, well, that's all right, because you've got an angle then. Just so you make sure your plummet is in line. Drop it in the water slowly and carefully look at your depth. So I'm going to start from the bank here. I know roughly and already that plummet is hitting bottom, and that's only just a few inches deep. And there, as I go out, now it's starting to drop away. There, I'm just hitting again there and there. Now it's really dropping. I'm looking for that little crease. There, it's gone. I'm looking for the crease line. That's a natural place. And I've set that's hit the bottom now. So that float is about probably 4 or 5 centimetres over depth. When you think about it, I'm fishing a hard banded pellet. If you're on a method feeder, your bait's right on the bottom, isn't it? And that's where you want your bait when you're fishing with a banded pellet. Not dead depth, you want it just over depth to make sure that you're not hooking them liners, that when the fish pick the bait up, it picks it up off the bottom and gets hooked. You tend to foul hook a lot less fish by fishing over depth, just a little bit, not too much. So pick your line, I'm just on that crease line, that's important. And then from there, the depth, I know on this lake doesn't alter. From there to the other side, it's virtually the same all the way through. So we're just fishing where you'd expect the fish to be, on that natural crease line. I'm feeding just 4mm hard feed carp pellets. It's a fair bit of tow on the water, and it's bringing the float back towards me. What you have to really be careful of the most important thing is not to strike at every little movement. I'm looking for that float to go straight down fast, but any little pulls or movements or drags, and I'm ignoring that. Just looking for that float to shoot under quickly, because with a banded pellet, the fish, when that goes under, when the fish takes the pellet in, the bite is when it's felt the hook, it's tried to spit it out, and of course it's hooked itself. So you don't have to strike, you just lift into the fish. You're looking for a hard pull down. I can see there's loads of fish there. That was a hard pull down. The float just went down, and then you know you've hooked the fish properly. It's so easy to foul hook fish with this method. You're feeding pellets, they get excited, the fish are flying around. And look how I'm flicking a few more pellets in there. Always think about your next fish. Not the one you've got on the hook. Always think about your next fish, even if you're pleasure fishing. And try and enjoy the fish. You don't have to drag it in 2 seconds. Try and enjoy. Fishing, really, the pleasure is getting the fish to feed and actually playing the fish. Getting the thrill of playing the fish. This is a big fish I've got on here. I can't just haul it in. I'm just bringing it round. Always have to take care also when you're bringing the fish in. They try to get under, I'm on a platform today, they try to get under a platform, so control the fish with a puller bung if you've got one. There. But you can see that elastic I'm doing what I want with that fish really, but if it wants to run, I can release that elastic again. I can't get its head up yet, I'm trying hard. E-roach are much easier than these. If that was a pound roach, it had been in the net by now. I don't know, it might be a barbel, I don't know what it is. This one feels like I've hooked the bottom. I can tell this is going to be an arm aching session. So I'm really putting pressure on this fish. I'm trying to lift it up as much as I can. As I say, this is just my normal pole that I use for silverfish as well, except that I've got different tip sections in for this. I've got the slightly stronger tip section, I've got the puller bung in. Without a doubt, and a banded pellet is so... Now I've had to release that elastic now because I don't know what this is. This is a big fish. In fact, I'm going to have to put this other section on. Wonder what it is. Now I thought I had it under control and I haven't. I've got a spare section of pole as well beside me, just another section as well in case I need it. It's still a little bit cool, so the fish are not really going to fly off, but it's just all power. I'm going to feed again. Look for that next fish. I'm feeding 2 swims, one each side, in the deep margins. You'd call this deep margin fishing. Banded pellet on the hook, and I'll show you that later, exactly how you hook it on. It's so simple, so clean. And I've got this, I think I've got this fish under control again, but I'm not sure. Feed again, feed again. I mean, you don't have to feed. If you, it's just inbred in me that I feed again and feed again when I've got a fish on, but you don't really have to. It's nice, it just keeps the fish settled there. Just a few, they're just 4mm hard feed carp pellets, and I've put the same pellet on the hook. I've put the 4mm, so a slightly smaller one, only because this is the start of the session. Then I'll go on to a bigger one later. This is unbelievable. The power of these fish. I wouldn't be surprised. It could be a big barbel, this one. Could be. I don't know. I don't know. It might be the end of the video before I land this fish. It might all be over. We'll have to do a fair bit of editing on this one. I just can't get it up. I'm just trying, I can't get it up. Look, I'm guessing. Barbel usually swim round and round. You can't get the heads up and they just swim round and round and round. Oh, that is right. Bobby's never wrong, is he? Huh? A big barbel. That's what it is. Probably twice as big as that first one we hooked. And they do, they're just incredible the way they fight. Just so simple. Just a hard pellet, feeding hard pellets, and not fishing, only fishing out 4 metres. Oh, this is brilliant. In the net. What a fabulous fish. That is some fish, that. Let's show that to camera. And what about that? What about that for a barbel? That is a beauty. God, look at that. And that, I'm always amazed by the condition of these still water barbel. I mean, look, that is absolutely perfect. Gorgeous fish. Oh, 5 or 6 pounds. It took some getting out though, didn't it? Put that carefully in the net. Got a 16 barbless banded pellet hook, 0.16 hook line. And then on this rig, this is my lightest rig I'm using today, I've got 4 number 8 shots spaced out, so it drops through the water slowly. Number 8 shot is 0.07 of a gram. I've got 4 of them, 4 7s, 28, so it's about the float is about 0.3 of a gram. The line, main line, 0.18. Always want your main line a little bit heavier, so just in case something's going to break, you're going to lose your hook length. That's all, not everything else. And then the float itself, most important with these carp floats, a lot of them are made by float makers in this country, and they're sort of, they make brilliant floats. They make them themselves, but they are really, you want a nice thick bristle. This one's got a yellow top, a nice thick bristle which supports that pellet as it's going through the water. I'm fishing over depth and there's a toe on the water, so that will drag a very thin tip float. So use a nice thick bristle. You're not striking at every little bite. You want to see a good bite, so a nice thick bristle. Still water, slim body float, good. On here you want really good, let's have a look, silicone on there, so that you can, the float won't move on its own, but when you want to pull it, it will move. I've got 3 pieces on this one. And then up to the tip where I've got a Dacron connector, just an ordinary loop on there. When you, so I've done an overhand loop, and then you thread it through on itself and just pull it up against that little knot on the Dacron connector. Don't need anything else. When I want to undo it, I can just, if I just push this loop, that will open it up, or else use one of those knot pickers and just get under it, that will come off. So I'll just use a single loop on there, And then one of my favourite elastics, 2.7 micro bore. It's got a lot of strength in it. It's really, but I find it's always silky smooth. Just one of my favourites to use. And in combination with the puller bung, you're always in control of the fish. The other rig is a little bit heavier. I've done a bulk rig. I've not fishing with that one yet, but we'll try it in a minute. We've got a bulk rig and just a little bit, everything a little bit heavier, except I'm going to still use that same, I've still got my same 2.7, my favourite elastic on that. So the other rig, very similar, just a bit bigger float, slightly different setup. I've got a 14 hook on this one, 14 hook, a band again, where I'm probably going to fish with a 6mm on that one, 6mm pellet, 0.18 main line, and then 0.20, which is, I mean that's 9 points, so it's nearly £10 breaking strain. On the other rig, it was a 0.18 main line, so that's £8, but take some breaking. Then I've got a number just against my loop there. I've got a number 8 shot, and then I've got a bulk of 6 number 8, so that's 7 shots, 0.07. So it's you could work out your size. 7. That's about a ½ gram float, so a little bit bigger float. Same float though, virtually the same model of float. That one's got a green stem, but green or yellow. I like to use a light colour, even though the water's white, because you can see it going under the water. You can really see it. If it's a little dip, you don't strike it. You really see it going under a long way. A light colour, you can look at it when it's going under the water. Some nice silicone float sleeve so it won't move. And then up again to the Decoy connector and the 2.7mm micro bore elastic. So 2 simple rigs, that's plenty. So just this one slightly heavier for the bigger pellet, that's all. Didn't take long and I'm into another fish. It's a bit cool this morning, like the wind is, I reckon, northeasterly wind today, but there wasn't a frost last night, so that was good. But the fish seem to have responded really quickly. But what happens on these commercial venues, particularly here on Decoy lakes, I mean it is a beautiful lake, but they've got 11 lakes here, and this is just one of them. Fish are racing around. I haven't got control of this one. And what happens in the winter when there's no anglers, then they feed. These fish are fed with pellets. I always think the best bait to fish with is pellets, hard feed carp pellets, because they spend most of their lives eating these hard pellets and not being caught, so they're quite confident about taking them. Notice I'm feeding all the time. Not taking long for bites either today. Just using the puller bung there to help me control the fish. No need to hurry though, just not taking long for bites today. It's lovely. Just to come out and catch fish like this is I've just set up the pole. I'm catching them at 5 metres, so it's not as if you've got to hang on to 16 metres of pole. Just fish where you can feed nicely by hand. Haven't even gone on that other line yet, so I'm just feeding where you can feed nicely by hand. And probably, I wouldn't say how many pellets I'm putting in. Probably about 30. Definitely not 3 or 4, so a good fish. There's 2 ways to attract fish really. There's the smell of the pellets going in, but the most important thing is noise. they hear these pellets going in from as far as 20 or 30 metres away. So you start your session a little bit slowly, but as the fish hear the pellets, then they respond. And they think, oh, what's that? And they respond and come to it. That's just the noise of the pellets that get the fish there. I'm really putting some pressure on this fish. I can't get it up. Unbelievable how hard they fight. Just a small float, spread shot, and probably about that much on bottom, so you'd say about 5 centimetres over depth. It's another big barbel. Barbel are feeding really well today. Another big barbel, and I mean a big one too. That's ridiculous. Look what I said about how the quality of the fish. Let's have a look. Trying to get him out of the net. There, look at the quality. He will kick. Sometimes you can feel fish just kick. Now look, that is incredible quality. I remember when they first were introduced into still waters, and everyone said, oh, barbel in still waters. Of course they can't breed. They can't breed in still water, but everybody was saying, no, it's wrong. But for me, from all I see, particularly here, they survive really well. They're in perfect condition, and they fight so hard. When you're playing big fish on a pole, once you hit into the fish, just firstly feel how big the fish is, assess the size and whether it's going to run hard or not. And let the fish run. Keep the pole down, just let the fish run and get an assessment in your mind. Is this a big fish? How big is it? How much pressure can I put on it? What fish is it? And then once you've done that, I've kept the pole out, I haven't unshipped yet, I've just hooked into another one, so I've kept it out, and then I'm going to unship, just carefully, making sure the fish is not going to come under your feet. Watch on, a lot of commercial venues have platforms, and the fish love to get under platforms. And you can just take your time and feed for your next ones, a few there, a few pellets there. And I'm going to unship. And once you've unshipped, you can then keep your arm, use your arm as you would on a rod along the pole itself, and then you can pull out your puller bung and trap. So you pull it out with your left hand, and then you trap the elastic with your right hand, the same hand that you're holding the pole with. You leave this one free to feed. Boom, boom. And then just take your time. Let the fish fight. This one they're all big fish today, and this is another big fish. I can't just haul it straight out. I'm just keeping pressure. I'm trying to keep it out of my swim, but I've got one swim there and one swim there, and it doesn't always work. But today it doesn't seem to be disturbing them. I mean, it's incredible fishing, really. Just fish there all the time. Is this another barbel? I don't know. Barbel usually just swim round and round, but they don't want to come off the bottom. That's the way they're built. They just sit on the bottom. So even though this is the pole that I use for silverfish, with this kit on it, it increases. All the work I'm doing is with the kit, not with the rest of the pole. So it's really as strong as any pole, strong as a margin pole. I'm putting a lot of pressure on this fish. So now, once I get it under control, then I lift the pole up I want to try and get, especially with barbel, you need to get their heads just up on the surface. Then you've got a good chance of netting them. So all the time, and as the fish goes, run with the fish. Don't pull against it. If you run with it, you'll find it will come to the top quicker. Oh no, this is a lovely carp. It's not a barbel. big mirror carp. Oh, this is unbelievable today, the amount of fish. Now this one, it won't be as hard fighting. It'll probably be bigger than that really than a big barbel, but it won't fight quite as hard, and I'll have it. Only a small hook. I've got a 16 hook on here, 16 to, well, my main line on this rig is 0.18 and the hook line is 0.16, but it would still be so hard for a fish to break that. It's quite really strong. So I've tried to get that fish on the surface, running with it. There, get its head up, get its head up, head up, head up, and then try and get it coming towards you. Once it's coming towards you, then you can slide the net under it. And it's safely in the net. Tremendous, lovely mirror carp. Probably about 7 pounds, I should think. Perfectly hooked again in the lip. You'll be amazed what you can get out with that tiny hook. That's only a small hook, that one, just tiny. It's lovely. I might slip that one in the net. That's the easiest way to play fish. I've just switched on to the heavier rig now. I mean, there's loads of fish down there, so I've gone on to a 6mm pellet, banded pellet, on that 0.4 of a gram rig, 0.5 of a gram rig really. Just that was really towing today, that water, and there's so many fish down there now. Remember, you've got to, that pellet is dragging back just over depth. And I'm not looking for any of those little, well, I'm looking for the little digs, but I'm not doing anything when it happens. I'm looking for that float to go. If I think it's a bite, then you can just lift into it, but you definitely mustn't strike. If it goes down and stays down a long while, but there's so many fish down there now. I keep feeding all the time. I'm feeding, it looks like I'm feeding upstream, but that's because the float is moving so much towards me. Let's just drop it in again. Big pellet on. Bulk shot, so it's a little bit more positive, this rig. So when there's a lot of fish about, it's getting the bait down to the bottom a little bit quicker. Bulk rig, and then I've got one number 8 dropper. And honestly, there's just so many signs of fish. You really got to be careful about foul hooking. I'm looking for that. The pellet's over depth, but it's actually running back against the wind. It's called tow. It's caused by the wind blowing down the lake, hitting the back end of the lake, and then blowing back towards me. So we call it, it's like a flow, but on a still water it's called tow. It's just caused by the wind moving the water around. There's so many fish down there, but they've still got to find the bait. And of course, in the end, they do. This is a bigger pellet now. That's always the hardest thing, is watching that you don't foul hook fish, making sure that you hook the fish properly. So that's by not striking at every bite. Just looking for when that float really goes down. You can do a slight lift if you think it's a bite, but no vicious strike. That's usually the hardest thing, because when you're feeding, you've got a lot of big bodies down there whizzing around, and as they're whizzing around, of course, they're touching. they're touching the line, and you think it's a bite, and if you strike, then you'll be more likely to foul hook them. I'm still always looking for my next fish. This is what Bobby does, always think about his next fish. Nice positive rig, I'm not going to get broken. Our barbel are feeding so well today. I can really put some pressure on this fish. Really. Not worried about the pole. The pole is good. They're good for any of these size of fish. Look how they fight. This is just typical barbel. Just don't stop. There. Another. This is a cracking one to finish a day on. Probably £5 plus barbel. What a wonderful day, really. Just lots and lots of fish. The peg now is solid with fish. Every time I go in, just got to watch those, as I said about the bites, be careful, don't strike at anything, they will hook themselves, and this is the result. Lovely £5 barbel. What a wonderful day's fishing. Catching big fish on a hard banded pellet. Such a simple method.